Mark and Lisa were a young couple in need of a peaceful escape, so they booked an Airbnb, a charming old cottage secluded in the countryside. It was exactly what they were looking for: cozy, quiet, and with an old-world charm. But on the second night, Mark started noticing strange things. A cupboard door was slightly ajar, and an apple they'd left on the counter had bite marks in it. Lisa laughed it off, saying maybe a squirrel had gotten in, but Mark wasn't so sure. Things got stranger when they heard the faint sounds of footsteps and laughter, only at night. Each night, the sounds grew closer and clearer, echoing through the walls. One night, unable to sleep from the noises, they decided to investigate. Armed with a flashlight, Mark examined every nook and cranny. That's when he noticed something odd about the wardrobe in the hallway. It was pulled out just a bit, revealing a door they hadn't seen before. With a growing sense of dread, they opened the door to find a tiny, dimly lit crawl space. Inside was a ratty mattress, scattered food wrappers, a pile of clothes, and even a notebook. They skimmed through the notebook, realizing that it contained disturbing entries about their daily routines. Someone had been watching them, keeping track of their every move. In a panic, they called the police, who confirmed the worst. The previous owner had never left. He'd been living in the walls, coming out only when he knew guests were asleep. The thought of being watched so closely in their most private moments would haunt Mark and Lisa forever. Claire had always been a fan of Airbnb's more authentic experiences, so when she booked a rustic cabin hosted by a man named Dale, she thought she'd be getting a local's touch. Dale seemed friendly enough when she arrived, giving her an overly thorough tour, but she didn't think much of it until she noticed how specific he was about her itinerary, almost like he was planning on watching her. That night, Claire settled in with a book. Hearing faint footsteps above her, she brushed it off, telling herself it was just an old house settling. But then, at exactly midnight, her phone buzzed with a message from Dale. "Having a good night's sleep?" it read, with a winking emoji. Claire's heart skipped a beat. She hadn't told him she was going to bed. She brushed it off, assuming he was just being friendly. The next morning, she received more odd messages from Dale, commenting on what she had eaten and the exact pajamas she wore. Alarmed, she scoured the house, discovering hidden cameras in light fixtures and the air vent above the bed. The real horror hit when she realized Dale had likely been watching her every move. She left immediately, reporting the incident to the police. Weeks later, she found out that Dale had been doing this to many of his guests, watching them live through the hidden cameras he installed. The incident left her unable to sleep soundly for months, the feeling of being watched following her long after she left the cabin. Brian, a writer looking for a quiet escape to finish his novel, booked an Airbnb in a remote cabin surrounded by forest. It was winter, and the cabin was isolated, just as he wanted. As he settled in, he noticed that all the windows were nailed shut. He tried to dismiss the anxiety that crept in, telling himself it was just an old cabin thing. But the more he explored, the more he realized something was off. The locks on every door were reversed, as if designed to keep something or someone inside. The first night he barely slept, tossing and turning as strange noises echoed through the cabin. When he finally drifted off, he was awakened by a loud scratching sound outside his bedroom door. Heart pounding, he jumped up, but there was no one there. The next morning, Brian decided to pack up and leave. That's when he found a small leather-bound journal under the bed, filled with entries from past guests. Each entry told a similar story. Guests had felt trapped, unable to leave, and some even mentioned the same scratching noises. One entry in particular sent chills down his spine. It ended abruptly, with a final frantic scrawl, reading, "If you're reading this, you're already too late." As Brian rushed out, he heard heavy footsteps coming from the basement. He didn't stick around to find out what it was. Later, he learned that the cabin had once belonged to a recluse who went missing years ago, and the locals believed his spirit was still haunting the place. The experience shook Brian to the core, and he left that weekend unable to write about anything except his terrifying ordeal in the cabin.